Hey everybody, before we get started, I want to ask you a quick favor. If you could please download and complete a short anonymous survey. It will take no longer than 5 minutes. Your answers will help our show with advertisers that best fit the sensibilities of this podcast and listeners like you. Everybody who completes the survey will be entered in an ongoing monthly raffle to win a $100 Amazon gift certificate. They promise not to share or sell your email, and they won't send you an email unless you win. So go to www.podsurvey.com/RIYL. That's 3 W's, a dot, podsurvey, podsurvey.com. It's spelled COM/RIYL, which is the name of the show that you're listening to right now, to take that survey and enter a chance to win a $100 Amazon gift card. That's it. It's all the interruptions for the show. Just from here on out, it's an interview with Marc Maron. First time, actually, we've ever had a repeat guest on the show. Last time we talked to him was 15 minutes long. It's longer this time. That much I can promise you. I think it's a pretty good one. So stick around. Marc Maron coming up right now, in fact.
I've lost a file or two in my life.
Yeah. That's a bad conversation, especially the good one.
It's only happened twice, really, where I've completely lost them.
Do you go back?
I lost John Hodgman twice.
Okay. Well, John Hodgman, I mean, he's a good person to lose just because, you
got to wait, though. The first interview was great, and I did it on the Zoom, and I mislabeled the file.
Yeah.
And I threw it out. But now I make sure I save everything at least 3 places before I throw anything out. So I got to throw out 3 things to be completely without one.
I have my computer on me right now, so I can just pull out the SD card and immediately suck it up there.
That's right.
I've had that happen a few times.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you seem to be in good spirits. I was talking to Haley before, and I was a little bit worried just because, tail end of the day, it can kind of go either way.
I'm a professional, man. Are you kidding? I used to do morning radio.
Yeah.
I used to, operate on, a complete sleep deficit.
Well, there's sleep deficit, and then there's I've been answering the same question in an interval of an hour all day long.
Yeah, I don't think I have, though. I think, in each interview, there's been, I guess I have become somebody with a public narrative in the way that I know as an interviewer that if I have somebody with a public narrative, I got to get around that public narrative.
Yeah.
But it's doable. Let's see what you got.
Yeah. Well, it helps. I mean, you ease into interviews so much better. I mean, it's when you know the person, when you have a rapport with the person, when you have and certainly early on it was.
You and I have as much of a rapport as I do with some of my guests.
Oh well, that's fair.
You've interviewed me twice.
I've
You've interviewed me when I was down at Air America in a very bad way.
You interviewed me when you were down in America, actually. I was.
Oh, it was about electronic cigarettes?
Yeah.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Which didn't work out well. I've heard you mention them a few times. Those did not stick.
No, thank God. I don't. I have a nicotine lozenge in right now, but the relationship with the hand-to-mouth with that thing, with the cigarette-y thing, I'm at a point where I don't even think about cigarettes. Lately, a little bit I have, which is disconcerting. To think that, for half of my life, I had a box of cigarettes.
Yeah.
And that really, a box of cigarettes to me is alien.
Yeah.
But these nicotine lozenges is fine. I just think that if I did the electronic thing, it'd get me into that.
It's like a trigger.
Well, yeah, I would think.
Yeah.
I don't know how it couldn't be.
But I think the idea, I mean, the idea isn't to go to something else and then back to the cigarette. It's,
it's too cigarette-y. Too much like a cigarette. I'm 50. There's no fucking way I can afford to get back into that shit. That is the most stupid one.
Why were you thinking about cigarettes?
Well, I'm still on a lot of nicotine.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. It's just in the last couple of days, I think maybe because I'm tired. I've maybe smoked 3 cigarettes in the last, 12, 13 years.
Okay.
I've smoked cigars on and off here and there, but I'm off that shit.
Is that like I'm wondering, so 3 and 12 years, it seems like a situation where something must have been going terribly wrong.
No, I smoked one when my divorce finalized.
Okay.
I smoked a cigarette.
Yeah.
I hadn't smoked one in a while. Smoked a Marlboro. And then I don't remember what the occasion of the other one was, but I remember rolling a cigarette and smoking it. and they were great. They were great.
They're better when you haven't done it for a while.
Oh, great. The problem is that, they're great because it's like, that's what you're chasing when you smoke, is that that pure, like you can taste the sweetness of the tobacco. You can feel like it's like it all comes back.
Well, and that's the problem, right? That's the heroin thing that gets everybody. How do you not go to number 2 right after that?
Right.
I mean, I'm asking you, how do you not go to number 2 after that?
Well, I'm pretty terrified of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, they're just nothing but bad. Like, I do have a certain amount of recovery around that stuff. I shouldn't smoke any at all. But the one thing I did know when I smoked those cigarettes at those occasions was no room for that in my life.
Yeah, you're scratching yourself as you're talking about cigarettes.
But I mean, I'm on a lot of nicotine all the time, so I'm somewhat hypocritical.
Yeah, I mean, isn't the nicotine's supposed to be like a transitional thing, right?
I just like it. I mean, it's just stupid now, though. But I do self-medicate with it. It does work for me. It works. But like people would argue that all you're really medicating is the craving for nicotine.
Yeah.
Like you're not like my body is so addicted to it that all that's making me feel good is by putting my body out of its misery for 10 minutes. But it levels me off. Arguably, maybe I should be on Lexapro or something, but for some reason that bothers me.
Are you? I mean, when you quit these, I'm assuming that you quit these various vices at different times, or did you just go all at once?
Well, you kind of got to go. Booze and drugs got to go.
Yeah. You mean at the same time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it took a lot of fits and starts, but no, it's be 15 years in August. No booze or drugs.
Is there transference? I mean, obviously you moved from cigarettes to the
sure,
lozenges,
man.
but
when you've got the bug, the addiction bug, it's going to go somewhere. Whether it be nicotine, coffee, sex, porn, food, drama. Yeah, the menu can be pretty diverse in terms of acting out.
You've got these steady gigs and
I don't
ways.
gamble.
You don't gamble. I know. I don't get the appeal to it at all. I
don't
never
like
did.
losing money.
Yeah.
Don't like that thrill.
Yeah.
I think in order to really like gambling, you have to have experienced the thrill of winning big. I've never won big.
You have to get there at some point, though. You have to
really gamble.
So
you have to put $10,000 down. Got to put $10,000 on the line, and then if you win 50, I can understand chasing that high.
But that's interesting though, because in that way, it's like alcohol or it's like cigarettes, where it sucks the first few times you do it, but that there's something there.
You got to gamble big, I think, to really get the gambling addiction going. You got to.
But I do. I mean, I know people who, in the way that some people can be casual alcohol drinkers. I do know casual gamblers.
Yeah, $200 on a game, $50 on a game, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
No, I know, slot machines and people who just kind of like go to Vegas and enjoy that. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess you enjoy it. I don't know. To me, it's like it's very work intensive to sit there and play $10 hands of blackjack for 9 hours. It's like, Jesus, boring. But to play a couple of $500 hands, that's some crazy shit.
to be like James Bond for the night.
I've done that where you're like this is just too time consuming. I'm just gonna put, and then to watch it go away in one hand, you're like, that didn't feel good at all.
So what's it? I mean, okay, I get that the first time. What's the impulse to ever do that again?
I don't have it.
No. Okay, so you've never done that.
No, I've lost the most I've ever lost is maybe $1,000.
Yeah.
And I've played $25 hands, which are pretty exciting, but even that gets boring when you really start to do the numbers and think about it. Like, okay, so I'm going to go up and down for what? The entire night sitting at this fucking table?
Yeah.
It's boring.
And wait for free drinks to
yeah,
spend
I
more
think
money.
The best way to do it is it's like you might as well just put it on red or black. You know what I mean? Just put like $500 on red or black.
Are you ever in Vegas?
No.
When was the last time you were in Vegas?
I don't go there.
You don't go there?
Not for recreation. I used to do a gig there.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because I go to Vegas about once a year for work, and I'm not a gambler. I drink, but I'm not much of a drinker, and I'm wondering, what you do with your downtime in Vegas.
I don't like going there. I don't really love performing there either. It's not really where I shine. It's really just sort of kind of proletariat entertaining.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, you're there for people that are out having a good time or whatever. I like being in a special place for the reason of being me. You know, and when I went to Vegas, I wasn't really a name, so I played the lounge at the Palms. It's okay. It was. I just don't. I don't like the whole idea of Vegas.
Yeah.
What do? I'll gamble a little bit. I'll get a good meal, and I'll get out.
I saw it not in Vegas, but I saw you in the Air America days. Before the first time I interviewed you, and I saw you at I want to say like the Gotham Comic Club or something like that. But you were like a middle act, and you were between. We went to see you, and you were just between the first guy was doing just like Middle Eastern impressions, just horribly offensive stuff. I mean, so you went through that ringer for a while, right? Of going to of performing at these places where people weren't necessarily going for you.
No, I still do that. I mean, I don't know that I was a middle act. I can't imagine that you saw me as a middle act, but a lot of these rooms here are showcase rooms, so everybody does the same amount of time.
Yeah.
But I still do that. I still go to the Comedy Store. I mean, some people know who I am, but I think still more people don't know who I am still.
Yeah.
I'm not like, I'm not CK. I'm not a big comedy star, really. But, I mean, I do have fans now, and they show up. There are certain areas where, I got a good following. I can sell 700-800 seats or whatever. But I still go do those rooms because I still believe that, I need to do the job of a comic. Mm-hmm. I don't mind doing that. That's where you work out. That's still the nature of the comedy club. Is you go, you do your 15, 20 minutes, and you do your job. I still have that in me. It's still important to me. Are
you, you talk about this a lot, but are you still, do you still feel like you're fighting the audience in those cases?
That's starting to ease up because I feel a lot more comfortable. I don't have fear anymore of it. I think for most of my life, I was pretending to be fearless, and I was at different degrees of anger. But I definitely think I have control over what I do now, and I don't have any fear of the stage. So I don't fight the audience anymore. I fight myself.
Like literal stage fright?
I don't know if it was stage fright. It wasn't stage fright. It was a fear of judgment. I didn't mind taking the stage.
Yeah.
And I knew that I could stay up there for an hour or so. But it was really I would assume that the audience was thinking a certain way about me based on their laughter, or the laughter they had for the guy before me. I would make decisions based on my own insecurity. So it was a deeper fear. It wasn't stage fright. I could always get on stage. That went away a long time ago. But the actual fear of being myself, of being guarded, that was really my style. I'm definitely not guarded anymore. I'm not saying I'm less angry or what, but the wrestling I do now is with myself, not with the audience. And fortunately, people seem to like watching that. My fans do.
The wrestling with yourself?
Yeah.
What does that entail?
Processing feelings through jokes or through my humor in front of people.
But you're processing, if you're doing the same joke, or variations of it, the same joke over and over again, you're processing it every single night?
Well, I mix it up a bit. I do I think there's something to be said about repeating jokes and getting them right, and just working out that muscle. A lot of times those rooms are good for that. Maybe you don't have any new jokes, but you just want to stay in shape.
Yeah.
Just go do your job. Keep solid. It's like a gym. You know what I mean? But lately I've been doing some new stuff, and lately for me, generally there's a little bit of variation, and generally I look for places where I can push further into a different area or find the sort of the courage to sort of go off book entirely and do that. And I've been doing some long shows to build a new hour. Since I don't really write on paper, I have to write on stage, so I have to book out small venues to invite my fans to come watch me ramble through an hour and a half of stuff that's pretty raw and try to shape it.
Has your writing? I mean, now that you're like the TV writer, has your writing changed? Has your on-stage writing changed at all?
No, it hasn't, and sometimes I think it should. I know I can do it, but there's something about the thrill of the moment that I can't get around, and also thinking on my feet up there and letting things happen. I don't want to go up there prepared. I have a fantasy of doing a very structured hour that's very that I know is going to hit every time, but I still like something to happen. that's not going to happen again, or that like I like having the freedom to think out loud and discover things in the moment. That's a real thrill for me. Not making a joke work as much. That's a thrill too, but it's just sort of like winging it.
So so what the beats are there, the punchlines are there, but what's in between isn't necessarily there?
No, sometimes the punchlines aren't there. Sometimes jokes aren't finished. Sometimes it's just the idea. Sometimes it's just the story itself. It takes a while for the beats to fall in place. I mean, some of them, I know some beats are really tight, and I can do those on TV. They're good to have, these things that work over and over again for when you got to do TV or, do a tight set or do an hour. It's good to have those ones. But, no, just new ideas, like actually just starting the dialogue about whatever's going on that day or a relationship or whatever, and seeing, if there's some meat to it, seeing where it goes in the moment, and then, saying like, well, that's something. I'll repeat that again tomorrow and see if it'll go further. And then eventually they kind of evolve. Those beats evolve. They stay solid through repetition.
Have you become more guarded at all over the years? I mean, are you, obviously
less guarded?
You've become less guarded over the years.
Yeah.
You've probably, I assume and this is something you're dealing with on the new season of the show, of having those reveals on stage and maybe having that sort of strain these personal relationships in your life.
Definitely. Yeah, no, the first episode is about that, about being with the woman who doesn't like me talking about our relationship. That's happened. That's a tough negotiation.
Yeah.
To figure out what you can and can't do. And then even when you can't do it, sometimes I would do it out of town. Yeah, I'd do material and be like, none of you guys can tell her I said this. That's the problem with social media is that, like, you got to trust people. Like with Twitter and stuff. It used to be like I could go out and do an hour on my relationship and it would never get back to her.
Yeah.
Now.
Wait, people literally tweeting your girl?
No, they don't. But I tell them not to.
Yeah.
Yeah. So can we not talk about this publicly?
Okay. So and they listen now?
I have pretty good audience.
They're pretty good about it. But
I don't do it that much. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
It's usually just a couple of jokes,
But, now that you're out there, I mean, you can, if you go on TV with that, or if you're on a radio
I've gotten
show
in trouble because of that.
Yeah.
And the first episode deals directly with that, and those things do really happen.
That's the TV show. I mean, obviously it's got to be to a degree fictional, but it seems to echo your life pretty closely in some ways. Do you wish you had a little bit more of a time buffer between real life and that story?
I don't know, time buffer, just a buffer in general. My particular style and method is very revealing.
So a filter instead of a buffer.
Well, no, I just don't know how to fill all of the demands. That's my fear, is that if I talk about something on the podcast and I think it's like, well, it's a good, it's good. It seems to have some moment. It could be a good bit, and then I build it out as a bit. Like, my fear is that, like, I'm going to run out of life, and that's not going to match up for people's demand for content. Like, people are very entitled about that. It's very hard as a single person, a man, to fight with, you do an hour and a half special, and then you tour 2 months later, and people are like, oh, no, I heard some of that stuff. I'm like, what do you want me to do? It took me 3 years to build that shit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm supposed to turn it over in 3 months? It's like their expectations are sometimes unreasonable, and they should appreciate the work for what it is. It's not just, you can't just throw away 3 years of your life or your act. It's hard, but we do. Certain comics set a standard for that. Louis, with his insistence on a new hour every year, has kind of raised the bar for all of us, and now we're all running around building new hours every year, which is fine. But it's sad to let some jokes go. I'll tell you that.
But you're doubling or tripling down on that now, because you're not just doing stand-up, you're doing the show, which deals with your life.
I see them as all distinctly different. The show, it's a different medium, it's a different context, it's a different writing. A lot of that's fiction, and it is for television. I know some of my fans will be like, "Oh, this happened to him," but those stories are all independent of my life. Most of them, most of them are not. They're not. They're fictionalizations, but some of them are just the seeds of the story are events in the life, not the story itself. I mean, some of the narratives did happen to me, but most of them this season are not specifically all the way through the narrative things that happened exactly, but emotionally they're honest.
Do you think that's part of the appeal? Is, you know, these people who are following you over from your stand-up, following you over from the podcast, who know these little bits and pieces of your life, or seeing them flushed out on the show?
I think some of them may enjoy that. I don't know. Some of them might not. I don't know, but I do know that since the first season is on Netflix, that a lot of people are coming to me not knowing anything about me. Mm-hmm. Like, I still am a person who is relatively unknown in the big picture. So all of a sudden, these people on Netflix, they see there's 10 episodes of a season of a thing by a guy they never even heard of, and they resonate with it.
Everything else on Netflix, so now
and they've binged on that, and they're like, "Who the hell is this guy?" Yeah. So now those people are the ones that are really in the enviable position, because they're like, "We've got a podcast? What the hell's that?" And now there's 500 episodes of that, and there's another season of this thing. I didn't know who this guy was last week. And now I've got a year's worth of material, you know, to sort of dig into.
Yeah,
that's great.
So why keep the show? You know, why have it follow you that closely? Why not just, you know, fully fictionalize it?
Well, I think this season we did do some of that. I mean, there's definitely the premiere episode deals with some real events around, you know, a girlfriend being upset with how with doing material, but the bulk of the story is me, you know, dealing with an opportunity to be seen on television and by certain executives, and they want to see me on Talking Dead. So then that puts me in relationship with Hardwick and Michael Ian Black and you know, their relationship with me. That's slightly fictionalized. So that story is, you know, most of the episodes, Mark's family is fiction. The characters are based on my family, but the events of the story are fiction. The mom situation's fiction. The desert road trip's fiction. White Truck is based on a real story, but it's definitely fictionalized.
So what's you know, for you, what's the primary difference between sitting down to write season 2 versus season 1? I mean, you were obviously kind of learning how to be a TV writer the first time.
I was learning how to do everything. I was learning how to write television. I was learning how to act on television. I was learning how to produce television. I just knew going in that I wanted to have the scripts done. I was nervous about whether or not we would be able to break 13 stories.
For season 1?
For season 2. From season 1, I learned that I'm a little more confident this season, so I wanted to, you know, take a little more time and focus on, you know, making choices as an actor. I was nervous that we wouldn't be able to fill the stories out, but that came very easily, which made me realize that the fictionalized world of my life is refillable. You know, also just sort of looking at the character of Mark from the first season, and like I was just sort of like in it, and now like to watch it with a little distance, it's like, well, that seems to be what he does. Those things, that's funny. So let's write to the strengths of this character and take advantage of the emotional depth of the character, and, you know, be aware of those things where we weren't really aware of that stuff in season 1. It was just me like trying to do as close to life as possible.
So I mean, you're a character in season 2 in the way that maybe you necessarily weren't the first time around. I mean, it really.
Well, I think I was the first time around, just by nature of the medium.
Yeah.
But to be conscious of it and write to it is something we had more ability to do season 2, because we could see it in action. You know, how I act, and, you know, what, you know, I do innately, comedically, you know, in season 1.
So I mean, what surprised you in terms of how Mark the character is different from you, just watching yourself play the character?
Well, I think the tricky thing is I'm a pretty broad character. I have a lot of capabilities. I have a lot of emotional range, and it's sort of like, you know, kind of focusing in and using those, you know, focusing that stuff, because, you know, you got 22 minutes, you got a story to honor. So, you know, where do we get emotional? Where, you know, can I do broader comedy? Where, you know, where is it? Where can I make different choices? Right, like we could sort of realize I had control over some of these things, and utilize them.
I know. Yeah, I watched the first episode today, which is why I keep referencing it over and over again. But you're notably better actor from between season 1 and season 2.
Yeah.
Are you? Is that just from doing all these episodes? Are you studying with somebody?
No, it was just from, like, you know, I knew I was comfortable, and I knew that I was compelling, and I knew that I had some natural ability. But learning how to do that stuff on the schedule that we have to keep, doing 8 to 15 page days, and doing an episode in 3 days, that there were I was just flying by the seat of my pants and showing up for work first season. But now it's sort of like I knew I had a little more control than I might have assumed, and that if I wanted to do something twice or I wanted to make different choices around it, we take the time to do it. And also I felt a little more confident, and I knew that I needed to listen more. I made notes on my acting first season, to be aware of when I was being self-conscious and try to stay in the moment as much. I made personal notes, and I also had Dave Anthony, who I brought in as a writer on the show, and also he appears in several episodes. He's a pretty good actor, and I trusted my writers to keep an eye on me. I went out of my way to tell him. I said, look, if you see different choices I can make, or we can play this differently, the director a lot of times on TV, they're in charge of the vision of it, but they also need to get coverage. So there's a lot of we got to keep getting the coverage we need to edit.
They're worried about other things. Well,
yeah. I mean, they obviously know when something hits, but subtle stuff. I really had Dave and the writers, keep an eye on me, and if there were other choices or they thought I should play it a different way, come out and tell me, and let's get it in the can.
Was it hard to go back, especially the first couple episodes? Was it hard to go back and watch yourself as an actor?
Yeah, it's always a little hard because I'm very sensitive to it. I know a lot of people thought I did a pretty good job, and I know comics, it's tricky for comics to evolve as an actor. I knew there was going to be a learning curve for that. I mean, on some level, why would I be different than any comic in this position? We have stagecraft, we live on stage, but we're not fundamentally actors.
I'm always impressed though by there are a lot of comedians out there who seem to just seamlessly make this transition into acting and who do a pretty good job of it.
Well, yeah, I mean, because we're show people. We spend our lives on stage, but we don't always spend our lives interacting with people.
So I mean, is it easier or is it harder that you're essentially playing yourself or a character of yourself?
Well, it's easier because everything I say, I've got to be okay saying, and it was written for me by me usually. Even if if we all wrote the script together, whoever it was, I mean, because of IFC's support and the nature of what we're doing, it's all got to run through me. I'm not doing anything I can't do or I don't want to do. So there's a naturalness to it. So playing myself I'm going to play myself in any role for the most part.
As you said, it's fictionalized, and it sounds like as it's gone on, it's got a little more fictionalized, or you guys have sort of spread your wings out for season 2. And I'm wondering if, as you're going along, if you can point to anything that you did it as a character that you wouldn't necessarily do in that situation.
Well, yeah, no, I don't get as worked up. I don't, there's not as much deliberation. What's right? What's the wrong thing to do? Mm-hmm. How do I get out of this? Whatever. I mean, all that stuff has to be sort of condensed.
Yeah.
You can't go through the whole arc of me losing my mind for 45 minutes before I do something.
Might be a fun episode, though, just to
sure.
Have a vision quest on one of these in between.
Well, there's a bit of a vision quest, but for me to get to a place with things, it's going to take some time. Whether it's an argument with a girlfriend or about to interview a guest or dealing with my parents or whatever, getting into that mindset, that whole process of me deliberating what to do and how to do it and all that stuff, you don't have time for that. So you kind of get to the crux of the matter,
There's that arc that you see with bands, the first couple records, and then they get big, and then at some point, all their songs are about being rock stars. Obviously, it works for like Cheap Trick. It works for some bands. But, is that something you end up running into when you're starting the show, a TV show that maybe starts a couple of years before?
I don't know. It seems like with the TV show like this. If there's an arc at all, it's just me dealing with a bit of traction, a little bit more success, trying to, deal with opportunity and deal with, the falling apart of a relationship and that stuff. And also there was more episodes based around my life as a comic. We stayed away from that first season, very intentionally to separate it from other comedian shows. We focused more on podcasting. There wasn't much of me doing stand-up or living the life of a comic, which I do live. and there's more of that in this season. But I think, speaking to the point that I said earlier, is that the world is not, the world is a refillable world. The character is something that can live in the world, even if my life is small, which it is relatively. There's no reason we can't take that world and throw things into it that wouldn't necessarily happen in real life, or take me out into the world in a way that I wouldn't necessarily do in real life.
But I guess you can sort of get into you can paint yourself into a corner in so much as.
Well, yeah, I worry about that with everything. Is that are these problems that I have? Are they changing? Am I growing?
But even beyond that, it's like, at what point does this become a TV show about a guy who does a TV show?
Oh, I get what you're saying. I don't know. It's sort of interesting because Louis used me in an episode of his show this season, and that sort of addressed from the other side of it. I don't know what I mean. I think we're still a few seasons away from that, so I guess we can cross that bridge when we get there.
Yeah. You play Mark the podcast host, or you play Mark the comedian, or on Louis' show?
Well, no, I play me.
Yeah,
but did you see me on his show the last time?
I didn't.
It's sort of a continuation of that dynamic.
Okay.
I don't want to spoil Louis' show, so you have to wait.
There you go. That was Marc Maron. First time we've ever done a repeat interview on the show. As I mentioned at the top, I'm kind of actually factoring out the whole Dave Hill situation, which was we had him on the show, and then kind of that night that he was taking over the FMU time slot from Best Show, so we did a two-parter on that one. This is the first time we've legitimately had somebody back on the show, and I'm glad we had Mark back on, because the first time we spoke to him, it was very truncated. That was a 15-minute long interview. We kind of were cramming two interviews together, so I did a video interview with him for my day job at the time at Engadget, and then we just kind of kept the law mics on and just snuck in a quick interview for this show. But full on Marc Maron interview this time, as he was in town promoting the second season of Maron, which just started on IFC. And I was speaking to the woman from IFC just before the interview, as we were waiting for Mark to finish the interview ahead in the lobby. And she mentioned that he had just flown in on a red eye, and that this was the last interview of the day. So he was in New York for I think 24 hours, and was somewhere 8 or 12 hours into the interview process. So I was a little bit worried that it was not going to go particularly well, because he was going to be, I guess, a little bit beat by the end of the interview. But I thought it went pretty well. Fun interview with Mark. You can watch Maron right now on IFC. It's as I mentioned before, in its second season, first season all on Netflix. You can watch that all in one sitting, and then of course WTF. Ongoing, twice a week. So much Mark. There's just so much Marc Maron out there right now. People were saying, "Hey, how can we hear Marc Maron talking to a microphone for another 30 minutes?" So you're welcome, America. So thanks to Mark for taking the time to do that interview. Thanks to IFC for setting that up. IFC also, a week before that, set up an interview with Scott Aukerman. So he will be the second follow-up interview we've ever done for the show, so that's coming up in the near future. Got all sorts of great interviews lined up for the show. Wiley Hubbard, who I mentioned before, Eric Friedlander, is a really fantastic cellist. We've got some more cartoonists coming up, lots of musicians, lots of good stuff lined up on the show. I just spoke to Dick Gregory in the back of a taxi cab. I had food poisoning, so that's going to be a really fun one for you guys to listen to as well. So stick around. Lots of good shows coming up, and we will be back next week with another episode of RYL.